rather put it in a different way. I'm trying to show, or rather help the caregivers
Okay.
and
Oh,
give
okay.
them, some way of, dealing with the situation
Oh,
and
wow.
dealing
Nice.
with the children who are going through the situation.
Absolutely.
So,
No, this is
yeah.
this is actually way more interesting than I thought, because this is where you are imparting this knowledge to the kids of different
Yes.
age brackets, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
to um let's say a seasoned person like a caregiver. Can we say that?
Yes, they also
Yeah?
feel little handicapped. क्या
Yeah.
कहें, क्या बोलें, कैसे इनको समझाएं, कैसे इनको
Correct.
handle करें. So this is the kind of uh, resource I wanted to create. And a lot of unkind and misinformed remarks are very common, very,
Yeah.
very common. And, unempathetic things like, अरे अब तो वो चला गया, get out of it. So a lot of unkind things are said and all, and which can be very, very sad for the family.
Yeah. 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 I agree.
And also you have to understand that military deaths are public deaths.
Yeah, they
So
are.
much is said on TV, much is shown on TV, lot is written in the newspapers, and everybody wants to peer into the lives of this, family that has been freshly bereaved.
Mhm.
And they, of course, they are well-meaning. Most of them are well-meaning, so they may even shed a tear or two, and feel gratitude for the sacrifice that that soldier has made, and so on. But then eventually they go back to their own lives, illustrator.
Absolutely. Oh, lovely. Oh, nice.
This is the
Wow.
kind of illustrations.
Mhm.
And
Hello, everyone, and welcome to I Have Got a Vibe, a space for meaningful conversations that holds space for truth, empathy, and human experience. Now, today's episode is deeply important. My guest today is Mrs. Veena Naravane, an educator, a writer, and someone who spent decades working closely with children, teachers, and military families. From 2020 to 2022, she served as the president of Army Women's Welfare Association over her husband's distinguished 45 years career in the Indian Army. Mrs. Veena witnessed firsthand resilient experience by the families of the fallen soldiers, experiences that deeply inform her writing and advocacy. She is the author of the Memory Tree series, a set of beautifully written, illustrated books created for children who have lost a parent in uniform. These books do something rare and necessary. They help children understand loss, process grief, and find gentle comfort without fear, without overwhelming language, and without pretending the pain that doesn't exist. Mrs. Veena, thank you so much for being here and for the wonderful work that you do. It's truly an honor to have you with us.
thank you, Sonakshi, for having me on your channel. I must say I'm delighted to be here, and I'm looking forward to a very deep and fruitful conversation.
Absolutely. Pleasure is all ours, ma'am. I just want to quickly delve into your journey, your wonderful journey of the Memory Tree series. I'd love to know, and the audience and the world actually wants to know what really inspired you to write the Memory Tree series.
Um, well, I think that's the a very pertinent question to start with.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, as you know, in my husband's career of 42 years or so,
Mm-hmm.
there have been innumerable times, I would say, when I I came face to face with loss. And those always used to be very difficult times, uh, especially because, of course, the grief of the families is paramount. But you also, at that particular time, have to set aside your own grief and your own dismay, your own fears at what has happened. And you have to rise up to help these bereaved families. that have lost their beloved soldier. So during these stressful times, whenever I used to be called upon to go and visit these families or help them out in myriad ways, I always used to be overcome with a kind of sense of helplessness, and
Mm.
also a kind of inadequacy. I used to feel that, oh, we are doing a lot, but we still need to do a lot more to help these, the spouses as well as the children, to deal with what has happened. And that was on my mind for a very long time. And then I started doing a bit of research. I started talking to these families more in depth, talking to the children. I also started looking at what other armies do, other armies around the world.
Yeah.
So I started doing a bit of research on that. And I found that there were some armies who used to have like a tragedy assistance program for these bereaved families and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So I started thinking, researching, and but I still couldn't lay my finger on what exactly I want to do. And then at some point after 7, 8 years, I hit upon this idea that why not create, a resource, a grief resource for to start with, our children who are facing the loss of a parent in uniform. And that's how I came to this memory tree series, and I conceptualized the whole thing. And I discovered, because uh, I thought that my strength lies more in uh, creating fiction. I've been writing short stories for a
Mm-hmm.
number of years of my life. I've never written for children. I've mostly written for adults. So I thought maybe that is the genre I know best. So
Mm-hmm.
why not, start to create these grief resources with the help of these short stories. And then, of course, because they are for young children, we decided to make them illustrated stories. And
Right.
that's how this whole project came about.
No, this is wonderful, ma'am.
Yeah.
Interestingly, sometimes when you're like when these kind of books kind of help you, they're your empathizing resources also, if I may say, because
Yes, yes,
you're
very
kind
much so.
right? You're kind of also, you know, uh, delving into an experience which someone else did experience, and you
Yes,
start to feel that you have a companion. Can I say that your
yes.
resource is kind of working in that way as well?
Absolutely, like for example, when I was going through my research and all, at one point I thought maybe I should put forward the stories of the brave heroes and so on,
Mm-hmm.
in a language that children understand. But then I realized that that's not what is going to help the children at that point when they are facing this grief, and that's why I thought a fictional story would do better, and they would be like an empathy and a sort of a manual that the
Right.
children could have. And yeah, so that's how I came to that idea.
No, that's beautiful. In fact, before we really delve into what these books contain, I'd rather say I sense from your answers that you are trying to still show that motherly instinct through these books. Even when you're not there physically, you're trying to be there for those kids, maybe as a companion, as a mother, as a friend.
Um,
Can we say that? Does that,
I I
it's
don't think we can
something
really
that.
say that. I would rather put it in a different way. I'm trying to show,
Mhm.
uh, or rather help the caregivers
Okay.
and
Oh,
give
okay.
them, some way of, dealing with the situation
Oh,
and
wow.
dealing
Nice.
with the children who are going through the situation.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So,
So,
yeah, can you just walk us through what
and
these books really contain and like how they're,
yeah.
yeah.
Right. So this series, which we call the Memory Tree series, it has three books,
Mm-hmm.
and each of these three books are illustrated,
Mm-hmm.
and they have four stories each.
Mm-hmm.
And all the stories, like the first book one, which is called Daddy's the Little Star,
Mm-hmm.
that book is meant for the age group from 5 to 7,
Okay.
and book two is for the age group 8 to 10,
Mm-hmm.
and then book three is for slightly older children, 11 to 13.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how this whole series is for from the age of 5 to the age of 13. So
Mm-hmm.
each of the books is very, very age appropriate.
Okay.
And I'll tell you a little later on how I've made them age appropriate.
Sure.
But the books at the end of the books, there is a guideline given for caregivers on
Mm-hmm.
how to use the book, how to use the stories, how to
To
use,
help.
how to read this. For example, with very young children, it's the caregivers probably who will have to read the stories with them,
Sure, sure, sure,
and
sure. Oh,
how to help the children to express their own grief and
mm,
express what they're going through with the help of these stories and with the help of the characters which I have created in these stories. So simple thing like how to ask open-ended questions, instead of, how about how they're feeling, how they, talk about their feelings, talk about their memories, and so on. The books also come with these guidelines. At the end, I have also given some activities which the caregivers can do with the
wow.
children to create
Nice.
some kind of rituals around the memory of their loved one, or
Mhm.
to remember the person who's gone away,
Mhm.
in a way that it leads to healing.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's a complete package. I mean, the stories, the characters, and then the how to use them, how to help the children to heal. So it's an entire package, which is there.
Mhm.
And also, many times, most of the times, I would say the families have two children,
Mhm.
and say one child could be in the lower age group and the older child might be in the 11 to 13 bracket, so that
Mhm.
is why we created a series like this, so the family can actually make use of all the books depending on where their children fit it.
That's so
That
interesting.
is the entire project. Yes.
No, this is actually way more interesting than I thought, because this is where you are imparting this knowledge to the kids of different age
Yes.
brackets, I'm sure, but
Right.
to um let's say a seasoned person like a caregiver. Can we say that?
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's
Yes. But
that's
also, Sonakshi, the thing I would like to mention here is
Mhm.
that many times the caregivers of these children, which could be of course, the mother who's left
Parents.
behind, or father, depending on who they have lost, and also the grandparents, they themselves are also going through a grieving
Yeah,
process.
yeah, yeah, of course.
So it's
So
not
what
easy
yeah, I'm
to
sure
follow.
it's
But sometimes I find, like in my personal experience, I find that many times it is the mother's sister, the Masi,
yeah, yeah.
who's sort of is the pillar of strength, or sometimes it is the mama, or somebody else
Right,
like that.
right.
And over a period of time, then the grandparents get their thoughts together and so on, and then try to be there for the children. So
Helpful.
it's really very individual to each family, which member of that family is going to become the caregiver, not
Mhm.
only for the spouse but for the children. And sometimes, of course, it is friends who come to the rescue.
Yeah,
So anybody could be the caregiver, really. So this book, and there a lot many times the caregiver is also foxed, you know, that how
correct.
do I talk to this child who has lost this father or the mother, and they also feel little handicapped. क्या
Yeah,
कहें, क्या बोलें, कैसे इनको समझाएं, कैसे इनको
correct.
हैंडल करें. So this is the kind of uh, resource I wanted to create. Uh, so it's going to be equally helpful for the caregivers as well as for the children, of
For
course.
children as well. No, I absolutely appreciate your effort here. And in fact, how I see this also is, I mean, I feel like these kind of books, this book series must be introduced in school counseling programs as
Yes,
well. I think,
yes,
sometimes when the entire family is sort of grief stricken, right? So there's someone neutral or someone
yes.
who's kind of, I mean, this book sort of could create professional counselors as well, if I may
Counseling.
say, right?
Yes,
um
absolutely.
and I think that's where I see, the book being utilized apart from the families. So no, that's fabulous. That's great, ma'am. I
Thank
think
you.
that's where, no, I mean, this is a wonderful, wonderful effort.
Yes.
And I think that's where you kind of striking a good balance between, honesty, but at the same time being gentle. So it's
Jen,
the book
yes.
is going to be held in the hands which could actually help in healing,
Help them.
right?
Yes,
So
yes, absolutely.
that's great. But Another aspect which I'd like to know about from you is that why do you think there is such a gap in India when it comes to children's literature, especially on grief?
Yes. Uh, you know, I feel there is a gap in India in the overall conversation about grief.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only about children, you know. There
Mm-hmm.
is little by way of help. There are hardly, I mean, you'll be surprised to know that there are hardly any specialized grief counselors in India. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen that many times when people do want to go to somebody for counseling for grief, then
Yeah.
they just go to a normal counselor, and that counselor has to then deal with the grief
Mm-hmm.
as well, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, but grief handling is a very specialized thing, you know.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, we don't have, there are even fewer grief support groups.
Okay.
Like many times abroad, you will find support groups, you know, for,
Mm.
say, for example, for parents who have lost a child, you know, there
Yeah.
are grief support groups and so on. But in India, that concept has yet to really take off, where you have support groups everywhere in the community, where you
Correct.
can go, you can talk, you can find people who have been through the same trauma as you have, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, hardly any grief counselors, hardly any support groups. So, and then when it comes to resources for children, they're
Mm-hmm.
next to nil, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did find, of course, some children's literature, you know, in India. For
Mm-hmm.
example, there is a lady called, I forget her name, Jha, I think Richa Jha, and she has written a book, When I Lost My Sister,
Okay.
when my sister died, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
then there is this lady called Chatura Rao. She has written a book on, you know, how to help children who lose a grandmother.
Oh
So
wow.
Gone Grandmother is the
Yeah.
name of the book. It's been published by Tulika, which is a very fine publisher.
Mm-hmm.
So these kind of things are there. But if you see abroad, there are a lot many more books on grief. And I started researching, as I told you earlier, before I started writing, I said, let me look at what is available.
Mm-hmm.
And there are beautiful books, illustrated books. And for example, there's a book called The Invisible Kite, which is extremely popular,
Mm-hmm.
where they liken that, you know, the string that takes up the kite to the
Yes.
connection to
Yeah.
the lost person, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautifully illustrated
I've
book
seen
and so
those
on.
ceremonies. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, other than these three, four in India, there's hardly anything really which is available.
Mm-hmm.
And for even adults or for children,
Mm-hmm.
and least of all for the children of the uniformed services, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the other thing also is, Sonakshi, that the literature which comes from abroad, you know, sometimes doesn't fit into the Indian context.
Yeah, that's true. That is so
So,
true.
yeah, so it's actually no point handing them a book, you know, which is out of their context, you know.
Correct. I
So,
completely agree.
yeah,
Yeah.
so this is the whole entire conversation is missing, I feel, in India so far. I'm not really very aware of any very active support groups or any, you know, literature and so on. So I guess this is in a way filling in the gap. I mean, I'm trying to sort of fill in the
You
gap.
are. It's so
It's a very small effort, you know, a lot more needs to be done, really
yeah.
speaking.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I said, at least let me make a beginning, you know, yeah.
No, it's actually so interesting, ma'am, because after this conversation, I sort of do feel ignorant. I feel like this is an aspect which I think I at least I never thought of. And now that you talk about it, I see the importance of it so much. I mean, I feel like people get into like such meek situations. They face
Yes,
so many challenges all by themselves, especially when it comes to losing a member in their
yes,
family. And this thought never came across, and I'm sure
yes,
and the fact that you're stating that there's so less literature in India
yes.
means that at least a majority of the population is not even thinking about this thing. And
Mm,
when I hear about something like this coming, it already feels so comforting, because
mm,
it's like, yeah, it's like, you
mm,
know some oxygen generation in like thin air. I
yes,
mean, that's how I
mm,
sense it. That's
yes,
how my sense is perceiving it. So no, that's
right.
a great contribution.
Mm,
And especially when it comes to military families, you sort of do mention, or I'd love to know from you, like, how do you see, trauma or loss as being different, especially for, for military families? Do you feel it's different, or do you feel grief is different when it comes to military families
Yeah.
from?
Yes.
You do?
Sonakshi, I feel this is a very, very apt question, and thank you for asking it.
Sharma.
How is grief of a child, of a family that loses a uniformed soldier,
Mm-hmm.
different from the grief of a family that loses a parent to, say, a road accident or to cancer, right?
Yeah.
A disease like cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say here that, see, fundamentally, both are tragedies that leave untold grief
Mm-hmm.
uh, in their wake, you know. So it
Mm-hmm.
takes years for children and for the spouses to overcome the trauma that arises out of the death of a spouse or a parent. So that there is no argument about that. So
Sure.
fundamentally, it's the same.
Mm-hmm.
But in the case of military deaths, the unique nature of that loss colors many aspects of that grief journey
Mm-hmm.
of the children and the spouses, because the nature of that loss is different, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
here, let me just clarify that when I say military families or uniformed services, I'm meaning everybody. So it's Army, Navy, Air Force, it's BSF, it is fire services, CRPF, police, you know, everybody in the is uniformed, you know. So when I say military deaths, it means all these, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So just to give you a kind of a, you know, perspective on this,
Mm-hmm.
the we say in the army that the day you marry a soldier is the day that you too join the army, you know,
Sure.
or you
That's true.
too will join the armed forces.
Mm-hmm.
So the armed forces, in a way, is I would say, is a world unto itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's an incredibly strong culture.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, which has its own rules, its own language, its own clothing, its own housing, dining, and its
Right.
own conventions, you know.
Absolutely.
So uh, it is the army, I mean, or the armed forces is a tight-knit organization, and at most of the time, it also becomes an extension of your family.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Absolutely. It does. Yeah.
So this is what the whole thing that I want to, you know, just put that perspective, give you that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So in the early days, you know, after the loss, the military family surrounds that you know, the bereaved family,
Mm-hmm.
and it starts to give the children and the wife the support and the care that she needs at that point. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Mm-hmm.
military protocol is followed, funeral arrangements are made, then someone takes care of the paperwork that, you know, which is required for the benefits and all that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So in the very early days, it provides a kind of a structure, you know, for that family,
Mm-hmm.
and they know what is, you know, that they have to follow that, and you know how things are. It's a lot of things are taken care of. That's what I mean,
Sure.
you know, because
Sure.
the family is at that point in no position to, you know, really think
Do
things
this.
out, or you know, they're grieving so much.
Mm-hmm.
So, but over a period of time, then, Sonakshi, what happens is that the army or the military or whatever the services are, they start to get busy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then uh, in the course of that, you know, as the days go by, that that loved one, which this family has lost,
Mm-hmm.
it gets starts to get referred as a casualty, you know, in very impersonal kind of terms,
Yeah.
because then for the, you know, it becomes just a casualty, you know. And this can seem very, very impersonal and sometimes very cruel to the survivors as compared to their own, you know, thoughts and feelings at that point of time.
Mm-hmm.
After all, the family doesn't come out of the grief so quickly, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is one difference.
Sure.
The second thing is, that is unique in this death is that the survivors at some point find themselves wondering, you know, if the service to the country and the colleagues and to God, etc., was more important than the loyalty to themselves.
So
It
true.
happens many many times
So
that
true.
the wife, starts to question, in her mind that, okay, why did he have to do this?
Yeah,
Why did he
yeah,
have to go away? Why did he have to, volunteer? Why did he have to, take action the way he did and, jeopardize his own life? What did he
yeah,
not think of me? Did he not think of my children? You know, so this kind of, becomes another aspect of that grief.
yeah, yeah. That's giving me goosebumps. I'm sorry, but like
Yes.
this is so enlightening. I mean, of course, in
Yeah.
a very troubling way, but then I
Troubling
mean,
way,
it is,
yes.
yeah. But
Yeah.
this is something
Then
which, yeah.
the other thing, I'm sorry, you were saying something.
No, I'm no.
Yeah.
Please go ahead, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So then another thing, difference. Now we are talking about differences, right? What is the difference between a military death and the grief that occurs after that, and a death that occurs because of natural reasons or accidents or what?
Mm-hmm,
Now,
mm-hmm.
inside the military, all right, or inside the armed forces, or inside the uniformed services, we understand and we also revere those who die serving.
Right.
But unfortunately, the other citizenry, the common citizens and other people who are outside of this, they do not always respect the military deaths. And a lot of unkind and misinformed remarks are very common, very,
Yeah.
very common.
Mm-hmm.
And, unempathetic things like, Arey, ab to wo chala gaya, get out of it. So a lot of unkind things are said and all, and which can be very, very sad for the family.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree.
And also, you have to understand that military deaths are public deaths.
Yeah, they
So
are.
much is said on TV, much is shown on TV, a lot is written in the newspapers, and everybody wants to peer into the lives of this, family that has been freshly bereaved.
Mm-hmm.
And they, of course, they are well-meaning. Most of them are well-meaning, so they may even shed a tear or two, and feel gratitude for the sacrifice that that soldier has made, and so on. But then eventually they go back to their own lives, right? But for
Absolutely.
the grieving family, that loss is for life.
Yeah,
It's not something that goes away. And for them, it is very, very difficult to find a place of peace, between all the public honors that are heaped on them at that point
yeah.
and the private grief. So on one side, the TV and a lot of declarations are being made. The prime, starting from the defense minister, prime minister, everybody, down there has a lot to say, and they express their gratitude, their thankfulness for the sacrifice of the soldiers and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But for these people, it is a private thing. So
Absolutely,
how
it
do you
is.
reconcile that? So that is very, very confusing, especially for children. And
Mm-hmm.
this point came up when I was interacting with some of the adult children
Mm-hmm.
of who have lost their parent when they was young, who
Mm-hmm.
have lost their fathers in terrorist action and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So this point came up there. They said it's so confusing. He's our father. He's my mother's. He's our family who's gone away, and then here all these, uh, honors are being heaped, and also it's very, very confusing, at this point for that family. So this is another point of difference. Then also, once the soldier is gone away, the lifestyle of this family changes completely. First and foremost, they have to move out of, say, if it's a army death, then they have to move out of the cantonment or the Air Force installation, or maybe the CRPF has its own colony. So they police colonies are there. So the families are living there in a very safe environment, and they know everybody. Everybody knows each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly, after the death occurs, the family has to move away. They have to, give up that accommodation. The children have to move schools because
Mm-hmm.
they'll like go to some other place, maybe closer to their family homes. And then the children have to leave the school where they are and probably go to some other school. Or
Mm-hmm.
they sometimes move back with their parents, either set of parents.
Mm-hmm.
So that is another very big change that comes into their life.
Wow.
And the last reason,
Mm-hmm.
Sonakshi, the last reason that complicates, the
Mm-hmm.
grieving, of this military death is that the person who has died is usually very young and healthy. So it is a struggle to reconcile this, out of order, unnatural death, nature of this death, After all, children are not supposed to die before parents, right?
Absolutely.
And parents are not supposed to die before children are grown up. So
Absolutely.
it's a very unnatural kind of a situation. And this person who is so healthy, who's well trained, and who has all the state of art weaponry and armor and so on, has just gone away.
Yeah.
So it's very, very difficult to understand this and to cope with this is an extremely difficult thing. So this is, what the difference is. That's
No,
what
no,
I'm trying to explain to you and put
no,
it in perspective.
seriously. This has
Yeah,
almost left me dumbstruck here because I
yeah,
feel like there is so much which we as civilians do not really know. I mean, there is so many intricacies behind,
yes,
you know, how grieving is seen in in a defense family versus, and of course,
yeah,
loss is a loss for everyone. But then
yes,
there are so many layers to this loss. I mean, I
yes.
don't think.
Many, many more
Yeah,
layers.
yeah. No, absolutely. So, I mean, you did talk about a very, differentiating aspect when it comes to grief, for military families. I'm really curious to know, since obviously the context of the discussion also is about kids, you've made a resource around kids grieving. How are kids processing this trauma? How do they really process it? Is it
Um,
again different for the kids or?
uh, you know, Sonakshi, over the years, I've watched many families, very closely.
Mm-hmm,
And I find that each child is unique in the way he or she grieves and processes that trauma.
mm-hmm.
So a lot also depends on how the mother deals with the situation, mother or the surviving spouse, I would say,
Sure.
deals with the situation and the family support that they have.
Mhm,
I've seen, for example, many surviving spouses turn into really, pillars of strength and they raise their children with confidence.
mhm,
On the other hand, I've also seen, families where the children grow up, in an untimely way, and they become they take on adult roles.
mhm,
Even very young children, they take on adult roles very early in their lives.
mhm,
So it's different and it's unique to each child. I
mm,
also find that there is a difference in the way girls and deal with it as against boys. So girls may, for example, express more. They may talk more, whereas boys tend to bottle it up more.
yeah.
And be the man of the house, or they tend to not talk about any, talk it out with anyone. So
Mhm,
there is a difference there. But let me tell you that every child who goes through this trauma carries this trauma to his or her adulthood. I have
mhm.
yet to come across a child who is fully has fully overcome. They have learned to cope with it,
Yeah.
and they have learned to live with it, and do their best and so on. But I have yet to see a grown-up adult child who's lost a father who was in uniform,
Mhm.
completely get out of it. It's impossible. It's impossible. you
Yeah, I'm
know.
sure. I'm
And
sure.
that's more the reason that we need to do as much as we can, help the children to cope, so that at least they grow up, even if they carry the, loss and the grief throughout their lives, but they are, able to kind of cope well and lead meaningful lives themselves. So that's why it becomes so important.
No, I agree 100%. I agree 100% with you. I think that's so much needed.
Yes,
Um, you've also been a teacher, and you've been a
that's
teacher
right.
trainer for decades, right? So how did these experiences really influence the way you shape the stories of the memory tree?
um, Well, as a teacher, it's paramount. I mean, it's of paramount importance
Mhm.
that we do things in an age appropriate manner, you know.
Sure.
And for any teacher, I mean, you ask any teacher, that's the main thing. We level our teaching, keeping in mind the children who are in front of us, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
So you level your teaching to the target group, you know, the age, the level at which they are, and so on. So that is absolutely given for every teacher, and it becomes second nature, you know. So in my case, when I was writing these stories, obviously, you know, it was I that was the first and foremost thing in my mind, that these stories have to make sense to the children who are going to read them, you know. So
Right.
I made them age appropriate at two levels. One is at the level of the language,
Mhm.
and the second was at the level of the content. So, as far as language goes, the stories are written very simply, a simple language and straightforward. I have very concrete examples. I have not, for example, used any abstract language
Mhm.
or any abstract imagery, or talk of the loved one going to the other world, or look at the stars and the moon, and you see your dad there, or you see your mom there. So, these kind of abstract things I have refrained from using, and
Mhm.
I have used words. I have not used any euphemisms. I've
Mhm.
just said directly that he died fighting on the border, or he died fighting a fire, you know.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
no euphemisms for death or euphemisms for loss or anything like that, because that is even more confusing. So I've told it straight forward in a straightforward way,
Yeah.
and kept the language very, very simple.
Mhm.
At the level of the content, I have tried to bring in, I have not kind of belittled the grief in any way. You cannot, you have to
Of course.
affirm the feelings of the children. You
Mhm.
cannot in any way dismiss them, So I've
Mhm.
been very, very careful. I've reaffirmed that yes, the grief is there, it is right, it's right to feel the way you feel, and so on. But while I was doing all this, I also make sure that there was just the right amount of gravity to the stories. I have not made these stories heavily sorrowful or depressing and so on. They're gentle, they're sort of comforting, and I've made sure that the presence of the family, the teachers, the peers, the roles that they play, all these are highlighted in these stories.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I feel that I have struck a balance here, and of course, I mean, to go back to your question, being a teacher
Yeah.
helped me immensely to,
No, absolutely.
understand what would make sense to the children and what would not.
No, I absolutely sense that your teacher
Yeah.
experience has really help you shape the
Yes.
language of the book, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Also, one aspect which you talked about was that, some like you've just somewhere also used a very straight language instead of like making it really, you know, uh, in a very designer sort of way, if I may say,
Yes.
right? I feel like sometimes we really need to acknowledge, like, I think the best way of recovery also begins off when you're simply like putting
Yes.
forward the facts or the reality of life in front of you, and that is when your
Yes.
heart opens up to
Correct.
accepting the reality and recovering and healing from
Yes.
from that
Yes.
reality. And I think that is the master stroke of your book, because
Yes.
as much as the experiences you're providing in the book really count,
Yes.
I feel like the language is also
Mhm.
contributing so much. That's
Yes.
where I see this
Absolutely.
beauty.
You hit the nail on the head.
Have I? Okay,
Sonakshi.
wonderful. No, no, thank you. I think this is where your book becomes really beautiful,
Yes.
because of its simplicity and the way it has
Yes.
been presented.
Yes.
Was there, like a particular moment or a child story that sort of deeply affected you and pushed you to write these series? And, if you don't feel like answering, it's fine, but like, I'm just
Um,
curious to know.
I will not say that the story, or it was a story of one particular child that motivated me to go through with this project. Many of the stories, but on the other hand, I will say that many of the stories are based on what I observed in these children.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I was taking out the themes of these stories, I was thinking of the children I've seen and what they went through and so on. And that is how I could, sort of glean out the themes for these stories. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
example, I mean, just to give you an example, I remember that a friend of mine lost her husband, and when and a few months later, she learned to drive, you know, and she realized that she has to get mobile and so on. She never used to drive till then, and she then joined a driving school and learned to drive. And the day that she did her one solo drive, through the colony and came back, and
Mm.
when she got out of the car, I saw something in the eyes of these children, a newfound confidence, in
Wow.
their mother,
Wow.
and a newfound confidence that, okay, things are going to be okay. You know, mom has learned to drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I try to bring out not exactly this episode, but something similar where the child, starts after a while to develop confidence in the mother's ability to
Mm-hmm.
handle the situation. And then they begin to feel that, okay, things are going to be okay. Dad is not there. We are going to miss him, but mom is going to be okay, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we are going to be okay. So this was from a true experience. It was like that. Similarly, all these stories, somewhere or the other, I saw these things, and that's what I have portrayed in the stories.
No, this is very very touching also because
Yeah,
like you just quoted this one incident. I feel like I got connected to it at the
yeah,
very moment you quoted it, and I feel
mm,
like these incidents really give you a blood rush and also kind of
yeah.
introduce you to the reality, you know,
Reality.
junctures, if I may say at
Yes.
times. And I no, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
how was it like, because obviously you've been supporting so many families through loss, um, how did you really emotionally, kind of feel, or did you like, what kind of emotions were you experiencing when you were writing these books yourself?
yes. Uh, I would say it did take a lot of emotional energy out of me, to write these stories, to portray. And there were times when I was also
Wow.
reliving some of the things I had seen and so on. So it was difficult, but I had a sense of fulfillment or today rather, I have a sense of fulfillment because I think I did what I set out to do.
Sure.
And I think I have been able to create a resource which will help the children.
Which will, of course, and
Yes,
it
while I
must
was
be.
doing it, it was an emotional process for me as well.
I'm sure.
So,
I'm sure. And this must have been really
and it
personal.
was at some days, after I written a story, I couldn't write for, say, a week or so. It would be quite debilitating, the whole exercise. And then I would give myself a little break and then, again, get into another story like that. Yeah. So it took a while to, almost a year plus we have been working on this.
Wow. I mean, and I can guess how, like
Yes.
you must have gone through waves of emotion and then,
Yes. Yeah.
gathered yourself and then just come back to
Yeah.
writing. So
Yeah.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's very bold.
Thank you.
All right. So, what roles do caregivers, parents, like grandparents, teachers, they play when it comes to helping, children grieve in a very healthy way?
Yes.
I mean, is just, organically, I'd love to ask you this.
Yeah. See, it's obvious that, parents and grandparents play a crucial role, in helping the child to cope with this.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, before these parents, I mean, the surviving parent or the grandparents on either side can help,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I feel that they themselves need to grieve very honestly,
Correct.
and openly.
Correct.
Unless they do that, they are unable to help the children. So
Correct.
it's very, very important for them to first grieve themselves and be open and honest about it, and not hide, not sweep things under the carpet, you know,
Yeah.
be very open, talk about it if they want, or, in whichever way that it helps them. Now, the parents and grandparents who manage to do that are the ones who are able to help. the child.
Correct. Correct.
If they don't make the effort to, grieve and mourn properly themselves, then it's most likely that they will not be able to help the children in any positive way,
Yeah.
So family support is an absolute paramount importance. So Nakshi, but sadly, let me also add here that there are sometimes rifts that happen. When these deaths happen, there are lots of rifts that happen. The families don't really support the way they should support, and so on. So these kind of things also do happen, but not always or on a regular basis. But at times they do happen,
Mhm.
and then it becomes even more difficult for the spouse and the children to, kind of come out of it.
Correct.
So, but majority of the cases, we find that yes, they have family support.
No, true. I agree. In
Uh,
fact, mhm,
as
please,
far as
please go ahead, ma'am. Please go ahead,
yeah,
ma'am.
so about the teachers, so you were asking. Now, teachers also play a very, very crucial role because when the child goes back to school, he's still, in that, uh, is still, that grief is still there. And so not only does the teacher need to help that child, but she also needs to sensitize the other children on
Yeah.
how to, help this child or how
Behave.
to treat
Yeah.
him. Many times, what happens is that the children, the other children in the class who have been friends, they don't know what to say. They know that this tragedy has happened, but they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know what to say to this child, so that adds to the loneliness of this, and he starts to begins to feel lonely in the classroom. And the children who were friends with him earlier, they kind of shy away from playing with him or sitting with him and so on, because they feel that, oh, then they'd be forced to say something nice, say something to help the child. So the children begin to shy away. So now here the teacher's role becomes even more crucial, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
she has to not only support the child, but
Mm-hmm.
she also has to sensitize the other children. She has to have activities in the class which will help them see, give them a perspective, you know, uh, maybe help the child to express through painting or whatever way the child can express. So I
Mm-hmm.
have, in fact, based a story on this teacher's role and how crucial it is
Mm-hmm.
in one of the books.
That's beautiful, ma'am. One aspect which you talked about was that, especially about grandparents, when you said that, grandparents really need to heal themselves to actually
Yes.
help the
Help the
kids
child.
eventually. And there's a saying that
And
a hurt.
sometimes what also happens is that the grandparents are so broken, because they have
Yeah,
lost a child.
yeah,
And
yeah,
also they are aged, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
And
yeah.
when you are aging, it's a really very, very difficult to overcome a tragedy like this.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
difficult for the grandparent, equally difficult, I would say.
Very, very difficult. Of course, of course. No, that's very true. I'm very curious to know that, the context, of course, of the book has, it's centered around military families and, how they cope or come out of that grieving phase. What, would you say about this book helping, universally? I mean, how does this book hold a universal appeal, if I may say?
Uh, it is, I would say, it does have a universal appeal. Because as I said earlier, fundamentally grief is the same in all cases,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Of loss, and the grief journey goes through the same stages.
Sure, sure.
So that's not anything different.
Mm-hmm.
So these books will help all children who have lost a parent.
Mm-hmm.
So I have made it specifically, but actually it does have a universal application
Mm-hmm.
for all losses.
Mm-hmm.
It also has an universal appeal, I would say, because at the core of these stories, is the Indian family, you
Correct.
know, and
Yeah.
the dynamics in the Indian family, whether it is the Masi or the Bua or the Mama and Dada Dadi, Nana Nani, So at the core of this is this family, these,
Mm-hmm.
the Indian family setup and the dynamics that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So also cousins, uncles, aunts.
Right.
So I feel that is what is also going to gives this a universal appeal.
Mm-hmm.
And the book also can, as I said earlier, the books can be used for other children who have not lost a parent, but
Mm-hmm.
it can be used for other children to sensitize them vis-a-vis the children who have, vis-a-vis the bereaved ones,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be used by teachers to create empathy in the classroom to, say you read out a story and you say, why is the child feeling in this way and what can be done? What can others say?
Mm-hmm.
Play using these stories. So it can be used in a myriad ways, and it is quite universal in that sense, even though the stories are about military families.
Sure, sure. What about adults? Do you think these books can help adults as well? If, like, of course, they're going through the same grieving
I
phase.
think it will give the adults an idea of what the children go through.
Okay.
For example, I'll just give you an example of one of the stories, and that again is based on a real thing that I had observed,
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes the children blame themselves for the loss,
Mm-hmm.
because I was a bad girl, or because I was a bad boy, because I did this, or I did not do that. That is why dad went away, or that's why mom went away.
Mm-hmm.
So, this kind of blaming also the children go through. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the adults don't realize that the children are blaming themselves. And I've seen this happen. It's only later that this mom realized that, oh, the children are blaming themselves
Yeah,
because
that's true.
they had not done well in one of those exams or something like that.
Very true.
So these stories will give an idea to the adults who read them of what the children may or may not go through.
Correct.
So
Correct.
in
Correct.
that sense, it will be helpful.
And actually, this is also applicable to, when there are fights between parents, kids do start to
Yes,
blame themselves almost for every
yes,
trouble that's happening inside the house.
absolutely.
So they
Yes,
they they're very weak-minded
yeah,
there, and they tend to
yes,
blame themselves.
yes.
Having said that, could you tell me, ma'am, like when a child, has lost a parent, um, who does the child need the most at that time? Do you think there's one answer for it, or it's just again
I,
diversified
I
across?
really don't think, but of course they need the surviving parent. There is no absolutely no alternative to that.
Yeah,
So of course, yes, grandparents and so on, but the surviving parent is the one that they need the most. And they need to know that that surviving parent is okay. So
right, right.
sometimes the children, you'll be surprised,
Hmm.
fear for less for themselves, but they fear more for the mother or the
So
father
true.
who's left behind.
So true. That's
So
so
they're
true.
fearful for what is on with them. So their worries are actually centered around that parent.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
So,
Correct.
so if I would, I mean, in one word, say it is the surviving parent.
Parent. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. No, that's true. So if there's one message that every reader should carry from these books, what would that be?
Um, it's difficult to say. I mean, give you one message, but I would say that it is that there is light after darkness. I feel, that at the end of that dark, dismal tunnel, there is light.
There's
You know,
light. Yeah.
and each of them, I mean, just to give you an idea, Sonakshi, that a lot of these children who have lost their parents have done extremely well in life. They're influencers, they've done extremely well in their own fields and so on. So, of course, they have coped very
Yeah.
well with what has
Yeah.
happened in their lives. So, that is why I say, look at them, maybe their stories, if they come out in the open,
Mm-hmm.
then they will also be, very, very inspirational, how these
Absolutely.
children actually got through with it and made what they made of their lives. So that is why I say, that one message is that there is light after
There's
the
light after
darkness.
that dark
Yeah,
tunnel. No,
yes,
in fact, kids also sort of see work as a coping mechanism,
yes,
especially when they're going through this
yes,
sort of grief. And
yes,
and it could become so much so that they're trying to also, like, kind of, if not replace, but then, like, help the surviving parent, of course,
yes,
through their
yes,
company. And then, by trying to become
yes,
powerful. And
yes.
yeah, no, that's
They
inner.
become very, very close, the mother and the child, or the surviving
Yeah,
parent and the children become extremely close,
extremely close. Yeah, that's true.
because they've gone through it together. So,
Yeah. No, that's very.
so all the 12 stories, Sonakshi, in these books each have a different theme and a distinct theme.
Mhm. Hmm.
So yeah, I won't reveal the themes.
Yeah,
So
please. Don't reveal the themes, but I definitely feel that the book is sort of a mandate, at least for the surviving parents.
yes,
That's how
yes,
I see it. And correct me if I'm wrong,
yes,
ma'am, because I feel like for you to really heal someone, you need to first help yourself out. And at that time,
yes,
you're so blindsided because of all the
absolutely.
which is
Yes,
going around you. You just
yes,
don't know how to deal with a kid. And
yes,
kids, they have such delicate mindsets that you have to deal with them the way they're meant to be dealt, right? You cannot
yes,
deal with them differently.
yes,
And
yeah,
I think that is where your book is a wonderful,
yes.
wonderful contribution.
Thank,
And
thank you. But let me also add, Sonakshi, that it was
sure.
not easy to sell this idea to publishers, But I found
Wow,
a wonderful
are you serious?
publisher,
Yeah.
and she has her own imprint. It's called Bare Bones Publishing, and
Yes.
she is also an army wife.
Oh,
And
wow.
she immediately took to the idea, and she said, "Yes, it's a wonderful thought
Yeah.
and a wonderful idea, and let's do it."
No, I'm
And
definitely leaving the link also, below for Bare Bones, because I feel like
yes,
such people are wonderful,
wonderful, yes, and.
contributors to society.
Yes, she's done a wonderful job. We have wonderful illustrators, and everybody's put in their best,
Yeah,
towards these books,
these books.
which
Yeah,
will be out in the market very soon.
of course, of course. And when can we expect your book to, show up in the
I
market?
think maybe another 2 weeks' time, they will
Oh,
be
wow,
available on Amazon, and also they will have some kind of a launch, and
lovely.
it'll also be on the website of the publisher's website.
Perfect. So that's going to be around the second week of January or the first,
Yes, yes,
I
by
may say.
second week.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm going to also update the link, with the Amazon links, of course, for the books.
Yes,
And the world really, really needs to know, the aspects which are mentioned and the themes, of course, which are yet to be displayed in the book
mm,
after it is read by the audience. And I think people like the bare bones who are making an effort to uplift such kind of
yes.
resources are truly praiseworthy. So I'd like
Yes,
to give a shout out to the lady as well. um,
yes. Shahana Ahmad is her name.
shahana shahana
Ahmad.
shahana.
Ahmad.
All right, so a big shout out to Shahana Ahmed for this wonderful contribution and for bringing out such fine work to the world out there.
Yes, absolutely.
um, Absolutely. And, big, big, big appreciation for you, ma'am, for,
Thank you so much. Yeah.
being so thoughtful. I mean, I'm telling you, before this podcast, I didn't even know that something like this was even needed. But now that I spoke to you, it just enlightens me so much and brings me to the thought that such a thing was so much needed all these years. And it would have, if not completely help people recover, but help or direct people towards, not going in the most negative path, which most of the
Negative fashion.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So, before we close, I mean, is there anything that you'd like to say to the families who might be listening, children or adults who are still finding their way through
Yeah.
this
No,
process?
I think I already said, that there is hope. There's
There's,
always hope,
yeah, there's always hope,
and
and
I think we should never give up. Yeah.
absolutely. Uh, that brings all right, ma'am. Before we wrap up the show, I'd love for you to just flash your book so that the audience out here can see what you're offering to us.
Right. So
Yeah.
Nakshi, so this is the book one.
Oh,
This is
isn't
the
that
first of
lovely?
the series. It's called Daddy's Little Star.
That
And
is
I'll
so
just
sweet.
open it to show you some
Yeah.
beautiful.
Oh, this is beautiful. I love the graphics and I love the cover page. It's beautiful.
So this is the kind of illustrations the book has.
Nice. Wow.
Beautiful illustrations. The illustrations have been done by a lady called Mariam Ahmed. She's a
Okay.
renowned illustrator.
Oh, lovely. Oh, nice.
This is the
Wow.
kind of illustrations.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Beautiful.
there are good 10, 11 illustrations in the whole book.
Mm-hmm.
And
This is
at the
beautiful.
end, as I said, this is how it comes, the guidelines for
Nice.
grown-ups.
Perfect.
But this is on how to use the book and also the activities that go with
Okay.
those 4 stories.
Great,
So the
great.
activities are different for different books because the age group is different.
Age group, yeah, like you
So
mentioned.
yeah.
No,
So
that's
yeah.
perfect. That's perfect.
This
Thank
is
you
this
so
is
much.
the first book, and then we have the second one,
Mhm,
which is
mhm.
I forget the name. I'm sorry. The third one is
That's
A
okay.
Light in the Dark,
Mhm.
and the second one. Sorry, I'm having a senior moment here.
Oh, come on. That's okay, ma'am. Yeah. That's
So yes, I think Daddy's Little Star, A Light in the Dark, and the Bangle Box. I'm sorry, the
Oh,
Bangle
Bangle
Box.
that's the second one. Bangle Box is the
Yes, the
second one.
second one is the Bangle Box and Other Stories,
I
and
feel like they're just so true to our culture, no? Like
yes,
the title itself are like so true to the
yes,
culture. They
yes,
just immediately make you feel connected because of the
feel
authenticity of
connected.
the titles. Yeah.
Yes,
No, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, ma'am, for just flashing your book for us out there and for this wonderful resource one more time. And we are so excited to see your book launch and then show up in those Amazon stores for us to buy and check
yes.
wonderful knowledge that you're offering. That
So yeah,
brings us to the end of the show, Mrs. Veena Naravane. Thank you so much for your words, your wisdom, and for holding space for children and families in the most compassionate way possible. The memory tree also reminds us that grief is not something to rush past, it's something to be understood, remembered, and gently carried. And to everyone listening, may you find comfort in stories, strength in memory, and hope in love that truly never leaves. I'm Sonakshi Sharma, and this is I've Got a Vibe. Take care of yourselves and of one another. Thank you so much, ma'am. This was
thank
great.
you, Sonakshi. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Same here, ma'am. Same here.